This is Dr. Saila. Today I'm going to talk about a food that has been there for thousands of years, which has recently begun to disappear from our plates for the past few decades. It is fermented food. Microorganisms living in our digestive tract form a very important inner ecosystem that influences countless aspects of our health. So it is a wise choice to reseed your body with a good bacteria to restore the internal biodiversity. Why do we need the fermented food? Because we live in a toxic world. In the normal scheme of things, our body should be able to replenish the bacteria. Just because we live with antibiotics, chlorinated water, pesticides, processed food, pollution, all these factors are killing the bacteria to an extent that it's exceeding our body's capacity to replenish. So what do? Fermented foods improve your digestion. They often contain higher levels of convertible energy than non-fermented foods of the same weight. Before you even consume them, they're partially digested. You know that 70% of your immune system is in your gut lining, which depends on proper balance of the bacteria. And fermented foods have enzymes. These enzymes are involved in each and every activity of human body. They're simply intangible magnetic cosmic energy of the body. They're not substances. They're very important for you. And it helps to absorb the nutrients you're consuming. And it helps to preserve the food and to give flavor. Last but not least, it is inexpensive. And substances like cereals, legumes, and tubers, they all have anti-nutritional compounds in the food. For example, the phytates, they prevent the absorption of the minerals because they bind to the minerals. So when you ferment the food, this phytate content is reduced to about 50%. And tannins, these are the substances present in the plants as natural pesticides. They protect the plant from predators. They're water soluble also, so even soaking them decreases the amount of tannins, and they are diminished when you ferment the food. And oxalates, a lot of foods contain oxalates, especially the leaves. They form crystals in your urine if you eat them in excess, but the solution is not avoiding the food that has oxalates unless it has got too much oxalate, because if you eat fermented food, these bacteria use up oxalates and make the food much more absorbable and nutritious for you. And lectins, the same thing. And lectins are present in soy products. So when you make tempeh, the amount of lectin content is diminished to 95%. And the glycosides, the same thing. And there are enzyme inhibitors that are diminished when you ferment the food, like trypsin, alpha amylase, and chymotrypsin. The process of fermentation. The simpler chemicals are formed from complex compounds. That's why it's easier for your body to digest. And types of fermentation. There are two kinds of fermentation: lactic acid fermentation and alcoholic fermentation, which is then converted to acetic acid. That's acetofermentation. And in lactic acid fermentation, the glycolysis, the glucose is converted to pyruvate and pyruvate to lactic acid. And the alcoholic fermentation, there's the same step, but in the last step, pyruvate is converted to ethanol and carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide that gives the fizz to the drinks. There's a natural fizz. These two are anaerobic fermentations. In the aerobic fermentation is when the bacteria that works on fruits, ciders, and the vinegars. In the fermented food in the ancient world, one of the few techniques of food preservation was the fermentation. It is basically an art. And in the past, many of these fermented foods accidentally made. The cheese was accidentally made when an Arabian merchant put his supply of milk into a pouch made of the sheep's stomach, and he set out on a long day's journey. He came back, and surprise, there was cheese in the pouch because this sheep's stomach had good bacteria in it. And fermented food had been there for thousands of years. These are the Chinese fermented foods. Sauerkraut. Sauerkraut had been there for 2,000 or 3,000 years. When they built the Great Wall of China, the sauerkraut was given very often to the labor. And soy sauce, tempeh, hum choy, and Indian fermented foods. Each state of India has different types of fermented foods based on the grains that are available to them. Some of the most popular things that I know are like idlis, and they are steamed but very healthy. And fermented veggies, beans, and spicy buttermilk, many kinds of homemade yogurts, and fermented veggies, raw chilies, and several pickles. And this is this is palm wine. And this palm wine is popular in India and Africa. And before it's fermented, it's called nira. This is made from different palm trees. And after it's fermented, it's called kallu. Actually, lightly fermented kallu is nutritious. But unfortunately, these drinks are limited to certain classes of people in India. My parents never gave them to me. I'm just joking. And these ancient fermented drinks fell into decline recently because of competition from other alcoholic drinks like beer, which are really not that healthy. And 3,000-year-old Vedic texts quoted two drinks called Sama and Sura. The Sama was made by Vedic Aryans. It's fermented drink from juices, and it was given 15th day after the fermentation. And second drink called Sura. It was a fermented medicinal drink. And yogurt, this was mentioned in Rigveda period. And in Africa, they have a cassava, fermented cassava. You know, cassava has semi-dangerous levels of cyanide. By fermenting cassava to produce kawal, the cyanide is rendered harmless. And other things like fermented porridge, sorghum beer, palm wine. And Mexican drink is pulque. This is made from sap of maguey plant. I heard this is also very good. And drink of Finland, it is a fermented lemonade with raisins. And drink of Russia, it's beet covers. It's a very delicious drink. Someone really likes this beet covers. Let's see. Okay. And the fermented bread, injera. This is Ethiopian fermented food. And the Japanese miso. This miso is a fermented soybeans paste. The soup is very delicious. And natto, fermented beans. You need to acquire the taste for natto. I didn't like it initially for 2-3 times. And later I developed the taste and I like it now. And Korean kimchi. It is a fermented veggies. This is fermented green tomatoes. And the watermelon rain, I made this and it came out very good and it tasted better after 3 months. And there's a fermented black tea, it's called kombucha. These 3 flavors I like, ginger, goji berries and blueberries. This is a very delicious and healthy drink. And sauerkraut, I make this a lot and there's a video coming on sauerkraut. This is a very healthy way of fermenting cabbage. And how to incorporate the fermented foods. There are several fermented drinks. I'm going to post many videos on these fermented drinks. At least have one drink every day, whichever you like. You know, coconut water, beet covers, apple cider vinegar, sema, kombucha, buttermilks, and include fermented porridge or idlis or some fermented item for the breakfast. Replace your normal regular bread with sourdough bread and use fermented condiments. These condiments are very healthy, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, and so forth. And make yogurt at home. This is very delicious. And watch my video on how to make yogurt. This is very simple if you know the technique. It's an art. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Thank you.